Hey, good morning. It's morning here anyway. It's still dark, raining outside today in Crab Orchard, Kentucky, so you may hear a little bit of that. I don't know. Hopefully not through the microphone. I want to get back to Daniel 7 today. To do that, I want to read a little bit from Daniel 2. Daniel had four visions himself, beginning in chapter 7 and then on through 8 and 9, 11, and 12. This vision in Daniel 2 was not his, but that of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar could not remember the dream or understand it, but he was very, very troubled. And he asked his astrologers and wise men, under the penalty of death, to not only give him an interpretation, but actually say what the dream was. And they protested and could not, and a death decree went out. Daniel talked to the man who was carrying out the decree and asked for time to do what the king requested. And now we're going to come in verse 31 of Daniel 2, and I'll read that dream and the interpretation, and then I'll share some implications of this regarding Daniel's dream in chapter 7. Many of you may be familiar with the connection between these two, but this is for those especially who are not, and it can serve as a review for those who have already studied these things. I've also had quite a bit of thought on the nature of history and prophecy in the Bible. A little further up, Daniel says this about God, beginning in verse 20. He's saying, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and might, and have made known to me what we ask of you, for you have made known to us the king's matter." Just a couple quick points before I read on in Daniel 2. Daniel understands, as do all the prophets, that God is sovereign over human history, and that only the Bible gives us the true understanding and view of what God is doing in history. Salvation history, we call it, because he's acting to save us, and ultimately will usher in his kingdom, which will be an everlasting kingdom, overcoming all of the ones on this earth. That should give us confidence that even though we see injustice and violence and terrible things happening today, that we should not feel that God has forsaken us, that he is not in control. There's a greater battle going on, and this is why prophecy is so important. The prophets, through the inspiration of God, pull back the curtain and show us that the battle, the great controversy, is between Christ and Satan. Satan's attack upon God's character and upon his throne. And that this controversy plays out in all the affairs of human life. Satan is not a god. It's not a war of gods, as in idolatrous views of Roman or Greek gods. They're not rolling dice, playing a game with us. This is a real controversy between good and evil. And in order for God to be seen as fair and as just and as righteous, you can read that so much in the Psalms, this conflict. For God to be declared just and the justifier of him who believes in Jesus, it must be played out, not because God doesn't know the outcome, but for the sake of human beings, so that in the end the whole universe will see that God was fair in his dealings with Satan, with his followers, with those who rebelled against him, that his love was not quenched, that he was not unjust or unkind or unfair in allowing us to have freedom, even freedom to choose evil and to do wrong. Another point in what we've just read here, To you, O God of my fathers, I give thanks and praise, for you have given me wisdom and might, and have made known to me what we ask of you, for you have made known to us the king's matter. You'll find later in Daniel 7 and in Daniel's dreams that he did not understand all the meaning of the visions. He had some inkling of what was going on in chapter 8 especially. Chapter 9, 10, the angel is sent to him to explain the larger picture of the dreams, but much is hidden from Daniel. And the Lord tells him through the angel, go your way, Daniel, that is, to your grave, knowing that these things are for the time of the end. And we have this promise in Daniel 12 that knowledge would increase at the time of the end. That's not just a general knowledge. That's referring to a knowledge of the prophecies that were given for us. So bear those things in mind as we study in the book of Daniel. Now to verse 31 with the dream and its interpretation, and we'll make an application to Daniel 7. You saw, O king, and behold, a great image. This image, mighty and of exceeding brightness, stood before you, and its appearance was frightening. The head of the image was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its middle and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You'll look that there's a descending order of the value of the metal. The head being gold, and then the metal, the value of it, even in that day, decreases in these different sections of the image. Finally, with the legs of iron, which have little comparative value to gold, but it is valued because of its great strength, and that will also be contrasted. As you looked, a stone was cut out by no human hand, and it struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. That should tell you not to be too attached to what this image represents, because it will be destroyed. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold all together were broken in pieces and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, so that not a trace of them could be found. But the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This dream begins the apocalyptic revelations of God in Daniel and Revelation. This is the foundation. And with each succeeding vision, there's no contradiction to this delineation of historical events. We know from history that these prophecies rang true. There are many who want to date Daniel to the 2nd century before Christ because they claim that there is no such thing as prophecy, that these things were not foreseen, that the writer was simply describing history as it had transpired. That's not how the New Testament or Jesus referred to Daniel. That is, there's evidence within Daniel itself that that was not the case, that it was around 600 years before Christ, certainly before Daniel was contemporary when the time when Medes and the Persians overtook Babylon, but he did not live to see Greece and Rome come on the stage. Let's pick up again with our reading. This was the dream. Now we will tell the king its interpretation. You, O king, the King of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given the image, who has given the kingdom, the power, and the might, and the glory, and into whose hand he has given, wherefore they dwell, the children of man, the beasts of the field, and the birds of the heavens, making you rule over them all. You are the head of gold. And in Daniel 7, we're introduced to the first beast, which is a lion with wings. And again, there are 4 beasts there, like there are 4 kingdoms here. And that first beast in Daniel 7 will also be Babylon, where there we're giving a little bit more detail about it. And again, it's Daniel's vision, not the vision of Nebuchadnezzar. Verse 39, another kingdom inferior to you shall arise after you, and yet a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. Now these kingdoms are not named here, but Medo Persia and Greece are certainly named in Daniel's visions. And there shall be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, because iron breaks to pieces and shatters all things. And like iron that crushes, it shall break and crush all these. And as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, it shall be a divided kingdom. But some of the firmness of iron shall be in it, just as you saw iron mixed with the soft clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly iron and partly clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly brittle. As you saw the iron mixed with soft clay, so they will mix with one another in marriage, but they will not hold together, just as iron does not mix with clay. And this is the history of Europe after the Roman Empire became the Holy Roman Empire, the papacy. And as Rome continued in that way as a kingdom, and then the divisions that took place in Europe, partly strong and partly weak, they would not hold together. Europe will not hold together, contrary to the European Union. It will not have it never has had the strength of these previous kingdoms. And in the days of these divisions, in the days of this divided kingdom of the Western world, the whole world really, will come the kingdom of God. We are in the end times. As you saw the iron mixed with soft clay, verse 43, so they will mix with one another in marriage, but they will not hold together, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of those kings, kings or kingdoms, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed, nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever. Just as you saw that a stone was cut from a mountain by no human hand, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. A great God has made known to the king what shall be after this. The dream is certain and its interpretation sure. Nebuchadnezzar at this point did not humble himself completely. He did not become a worshiper of God, and his story is told then further here, even Daniel 4, how he was lifted up in his pride, and he said, is this not great Babylon? Look what I have made. And he went insane. And God affected his mind, and for 7 years he was humbled until he did acknowledge the glory of God. So Nebuchadnezzar's response is interesting here, and I want to compare it to the response that we might have. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell upon his face and paid homage to Daniel and commanded that an offering and incense be offered up to him. The king answered and said to Daniel, truly your God is God of gods and Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries, for you have been able to reveal this mystery. Do we have the same sense of God's glory, God's power, God's strength when we read of these things? They should be more than just historical accounts. We certainly don't count them as empty words. Do we see, what does it mean for God to act in human history, in our history? These kingdoms were made up of people. The kingdoms today are made up of people. The actions of these kingdoms are based upon the decisions of people, whether they are dictatorships or democracies. Now in chapter 3, Nebuchadnezzar actually builds an image, and this time it's an image all of gold, and he really acts in defiance of what he was told in this dream. He doesn't want his kingdom to end. He wants it to persevere. He doesn't want to see the fulfillment of what has been revealed to him. And under threat of punishment, he says, everyone who will not bow down and worship this image will be put to death. And you have the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace in the chapter that follows. That chapter is historical, but it is typological. It is not a direct prophecy, but it is a prophecy in the sense of a type. It is the type of all. It is a type, a lesson for all of those who resist the threat of idolaters, the demand to worship that which is not God. And it plays a significant role in Revelation 13 and the beast who wants everyone to wander after him and worship him. The issue of worship is central to the book of Daniel. It's central to the book of Revelation. Therefore, the underlying theme of the sanctuary, the Old Testament sanctuary, and the temple of God in heaven, after which it was modeled, runs through the books of Daniel and Revelation. The sanctuary is the background that we must understand, the sanctuary service we must understand to understand the prophecies. And we will get more into that later. I think I'm going to leave that there, and with the next video I'll pick up on, I'll refer to this one, and I'll pick up with the four beasts of Daniel 7. If I go any longer, I've already gone 16 minutes, the video would be too long. So hopefully I'll get that perhaps later today or the next day on Daniel 7, and we'll charge right in there, trying to understand them. I want to be clear that there is a repeating through Daniel and then on into Revelation. Revelation draws heavily on these visions of Daniel. And with each succeeding vision, there's a repetition. It's consistent with what went before. The new details expand the vision. They give it depth and meaning. There's a greater revelation, a progression of truth. And we'll discuss in another video why God reveals things symbolically. But I will say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. The symbols are containers of meaning that more than just a few words can give. They provide pictures, and you'll see in Daniel 7 the beast that's like a lion, and the one that's like a leopard, and one that's like a bear, and one that's like this great dragon-like beast. They tell us something that God is not going to reveal in exact detail of each individual kingdom. It's the large picture, the big picture of what God is doing. Much more detail is given to God's individual action, to God's character. The Bible is about the God of Israel, not primarily the Israel of God. Remember that. The Bible is about who God is and what God is doing, not simply who God's people are and what they're doing. The two are certainly related, but we cannot become so focused upon the horizontal plane of even Israel or the new Israel, which is the church, but of the God of heaven on the vertical plane, our connection with him, and to see that he is sovereign over all of our affairs. And he does that through his Messiah, Jesus Christ. All that God does, he acts in, as, and through Jesus Christ. There's only one mediator between God and man. He is the ladder that Jacob saw in his dream, connecting heaven and earth. He has the keys of of heaven and Hades. He has overcome death through his own death and resurrection. And it is through Jesus the Messiah in his first coming, but especially now in his second coming, as we look forward to his second advent, that the mountain of God, the kingdom of God, will overcome all of these others and be exalted. There will be a new heaven and a new earth that we read about in Revelation 21, coming down from God out of heaven. God will be with us, and we will be his people. God bless you, and take care, and please read these things. Just simply read Daniel 2. Read Daniel 7. Compare the prophecies. Read Daniel and then jump into Revelation 7 and see the verbal connections. They're much, much stronger in the original language, but you can take your various translations. Even from the very beginning of Revelation, there's references to Daniel. For the time is short, he says. Even so, come quickly, Lord Jesus. God bless you.